Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's weekly Town Hall meeting, October 17th, 2022. Happy Monday, everybody. Today's agenda is projects and development updates, documentation updates, marketing updates, collaboration updates, and Q&A. Robinson, please start us off with project and development updates.
Thank you. Let's start with our engineering metrics. The first item, as usual, is the change lead time or the speed. So here it looks like I think it's quite obvious, our release time is climbing up because in the previous week we had one next release, and after that we don't have any releases. And this 72.02 days, this is an indication or a projection of how our speed is going to become if we continue the current pace. Another 2 points here is that our rework time. So there's like a lot of time that we are taking to rework on any MR that we are creating. This is probably because many of the MRs are in stale status and things like that. So if we can focus on not keeping these MRs open for more than 5 days, we can address this. So there's a shout out to the developers. Please don't keep the MRs open for more than, let's say, 4 or 5 days. Also, our time from the first commit to the completion of the MR, that's the idle completion time. So that is also increasing. So I think from the developer's perspective, these two items needs to be addressed. That is MR, the duration for which MRs are open. We need to close them as soon as possible. And the second item is the first commit to the closure of an completion of an MR. That is something which is going to be directly connected with the development time itself or productivity. The second item is the release time. Yeah, so the release time is something that we are all aware of. We didn't have any release last week, and we have to try to improve continuous releases. So that's on speed. I think this week we need to make up on the speed. And this is the same deployment or release I was talking about. So we are stagnant. On the right hand side, these releases, these hot fixes are from the previous week. I've just shown that for reference. So hopefully this week we need to have a next release with some fixes so that this flat line in the deployments is gone. On the pull requests, here what is happening is we have, compared to the previous week, we have lesser PRs. That's probably so. The previous week we had 12.67. Last week we only had 9.67. This is peculiar because we were supposed to have more activity, especially in the next. And also this the healthy area here. Here we look at this the third graph. Uh, we are showing a downward trend here also. So in general, we need to increase the number of PRs that we are managing to complete. That takeaway from this one. Change failure rate or the quality, this is still a challenge for us. So this graph is once again, this is not quite correct. So ideally, since we had one release of Next, and Ashwin, the QA had raised multiple um, bugs against it. This was supposed to be 100%, but since that release was last week, this is showing much lower. But we really need to get our hands on this one, the mapping between the releases and the QA, and this will directly tie with our release frequency as well. So there's like a lot of work to do on this front. So that's a general engineering metric all over for the entire organization. Now moving on to the project updates. Our major work was on the Ethereum Suns and bug fixes for some for the crash that we had identified on the mainnet. So we have a hot fix, and we are working towards a better solution for that. And on the Ethereum Suns, we were investigating how to handle the upgrade of smart contracts. This is an interesting item because once we deploy these smart contracts to Ethereum, these smart contracts will essentially be owned by the collective Suns consensus or DPoS or proof of stake consensus. So how do we upgrade this if need arises. That was an interesting problem, and we have a proof of concept for this upgrade of smart contracts in progress. And I think this Hive item, that was something that was supposed to go away, but unfortunately, Hive on the Hive side, there seem to be certain bugs, and there could be a new hard fork to address some of the protocol level challenges they have. So we will have to continue monitoring Hive, and possibly there is a either a hotfix or a new hard fork on the Hive side. So we'll be continuing to monitor this. And in addition to this, we are also slowly marching towards a substrate based upgrade to Peerplays. So that's substrate and Moonbeam stack. So we're slowly working towards that. That's from the blockchain team. And on the next, the screen is about our current features, wallet, cross-chain, and exchange. We have a QA deployment from the previous week. There's no changes there. So there are a few bugs which we have identified, and we're trying to address them. And this also includes a mainnet bug. One of the issues that we came across the blockchain mainnet was from this particular QA deployment. I believe sometime later in the week we can have a release with some of these items addressed. The next item is the NFT marketplace project, the trade hands. So we have some upgrades and completion of certain component pages, NFT metadata overview, and a landing page. These items are completed. So this is our burn up and burn down charts. So we have a 100% completion here, even though the number of issues addressed is pretty small. So that's trade hands. The next item is the Python library. So here we have a print that's completed, which addressed the sidechain functionality, and we also address a lot of outstanding issues. In addition to the Python library itself, we were also able to address few items on the faucet side. And I think this week, starting from this week, the QA has started looking into the performance. So we'll mostly be starting with the faucet because that's where we have the API endpoints readily available. So in the coming weeks, the Python work may shift towards faucet also, assuming that we find few issues, smaller issues, or needing to upgrade. So that's all from the development team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bobinson. Sean, can you please start us off with documentation updates?
Sure. Thank you. All right. So new for this week, we have one of our functional specs for trade hands complete. That is the detailed view functional spec. We also have updates to our user guide for the DEX regarding Bitcoin transactions and how to find public keys and how to update your deposit and withdrawal keys. Upcoming documents, we have more functional specs for trade hands coming up, and also user stories for our PeerLink backend. That is the Speak Network Bridge project that we are currently working on. So that's my update for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Michael, marketing updates, please.
Thank you, Kelly. Good morning, everyone. Updates are fairly similar to last week's. Work continues with JM and Jonathan on the product positioning statements. We're doing a critical analysis of existing products and subsequent features. We're looking to categorize and organize them as best we can. We're really drilling down and trying to clarify the gains that each product creates and the pains that each of them solves for each of the products and features, and which customer problems each of them improves or absolutely removes. The impact of this work is going to affect everyone in the organization. It's pretty large in scope. So we thank you for your patience as we continue to work through these definitions and categorizations, and work will continue once JM returns from vacation. Work also continues on the redesign of peerplays.com. There's a series of meetings last week with Abigail and Dave who continue to move forward the website with wireframes and mockups. They're really evolving. There are numerous considerations and areas of focus at this moment in time. Number one is a cosmetic appearance of the website. I think it's fair to say that we all want to see a website that's a little bit fresher, a little bit sleeker, little bit more modern. So the intent is to really move the visual component of the website forward with new animations, updated images, and updated icons. In conjunction with that work, we're really looking at the brand position and the mission statement and the values that the company is defined by. That also points back to the product positioning statements that we're doing with Jonathan and JM. The next meeting is tomorrow, so we're really moving forward and aiming for the October 31st completion date, hoping to show the first images from this work that Abigail is doing in Adobe XP to Jonathan this week so we can advance forward. After a few implementation hiccups this week, the Facebook and Instagram ads for the Bobby Orr Sports Art NFTs are now live on OpenSea and Rarible. We're going to continue to monitor the performance of those ads, and Sala will provide a full update next week at next week's meeting. The marketing team completed a review of all of the products and tools and subscriptions that we use as a team to do all of our marketing activities. As the team has evolved, this list has expanded, and we're run the risk of paying for some features that we no longer use. The intent is to remove or cancel those subscriptions that we are no longer using and to allocate resources in the true areas of need moving forward. In JM's absence, I'm going to give a little bit of an update on Kaizen because I want to reassure that everyone that the work is continuing. This last week's session was a full day session really dedicated to optimizing DevOps and resolving the issues that were identified in previous sessions. I know that work is really valuable for everyone. And, in combination with the work that we're doing on the product definition side and the messaging side, this will really clarify how we can speed all those times that Bobbitson is referring to in his slides. That's it for this week, and I'll throw to Salah for some metrics.
Thank you, Michael. In terms of metrics for this week, we're seeing, like for the quarters, most of the stats are the same as the last week. For the months, we've seen a bit of a hiccup in terms of traffic. But as Michael mentioned, we're working on the new design, and we'll be working on the SEO campaign as well, and some performance campaign to drive traffic. As for the weeks, similar trend, and then we'll, as for the domains, also in terms of documentation, login, and registration, we're seeing some positive growth in terms of this week compared to the last week. And then we will continue to also drive traffic through the emails that we are sending week to week. In terms of email, in terms of social media, we're seeing growth week to week. As I mentioned last week, most of the social media are positive in terms of audience growth. And then once we get in the new website design, we'll push in more. We will be pushing more aggressive in terms of social media content. As for the emails for this week, we started doing the new design since October 3rd, and we're seeing high number of clicks compared to the weekly emails we were sending before. And then now we are also trying to get different variation of the subject lines in order to increase the open rate. But so far, in terms of clicks, we have a better click rate than before due to the new design we have. So this is mainly the performance update for this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael and Salah. Jonathan, collaboration update, please.
Hello. So these are the collaboration updates for this past week for Peerplays. With the gaming sector, Gaming Benefits Corporation, we had multiple conversations in relation to the development and moving forward with the regulator dashboard. Essentially, that's effectively where within the applications there would be this special dashboard that regulators would be able to access data for within the apps that are being used within GBC, which is for charitable gaming. So that went well. And in infrastructure, 3Speak Media, we were able to finalize our agreement with how we were going to move forward with proposed development. And now we are waiting on them to finalize that so that we can start development. There's been talk about it for quite some time, but it's only now that we've finalized the set agreement on how that's going to go forward. So we're just waiting for word on them now. So hopefully we see that this week, and we can start to make progress on that. Within the medical sector, Mars VR. So I mentioned this in the previous week. We had continued talks in this vein where they want to be able to connect their game which helps with rehabilitation of people in the medical sector using virtual reality to connect it to the blockchain, not only to support the growth of community, which is part of the rehabilitation process, but also to be able to do all sorts of other things in relation to the medical sector, whether it be the ability to be able to monetize their private data, because from their rehabilitation and what they go through, they are able to, there's a lot of data that gets generated, and typically this is of course monetized by hospitals, but this would give an opportunity for the end patient to be able to have control over their data and be able to have it monetizable. And there's other ideas as well in relation to storage, which is very interesting. We are continuing to work on details on how we're going to move forward with this, but last week there was definitely verbal confirmation of wanting to move forward. So there'll be more on this in the coming weeks. And as far as dedicated team updates, unfortunately, we had one developer who had joined us not too long ago, Mehibu, and he was progressing not quite to the level that we were expecting. So he's moved on to other projects. We do have other developers within the blockchain devs who have actually exceeded our expectations in terms of how quickly they've been able to pick up on things, and also in the skills that they're bringing to the project. So even though we've lost one team member, we are still on track in terms of like the skills needed to be able to complete anything that is currently within our roadmap. So those are the collaboration and dedicated team updates for this past week.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, on to questions, comments, and thoughts. There were some that came in from the community, but I'll leave it open to anybody here first. Okay, so the first one that came in from the community, Jonathan, I think all these questions are for you, but you can direct it off to somebody else if need be. So first question, what security measures are in place to prevent Sun witnesses from concluding and taking the underlying assets?
Yeah, I can answer that question. Actually, when I got this question, I made sure to discuss this with the other team members and get their input. And essentially, the Suns use the same gamified proof of stake consensus to make decisions on asset management, and it's used in every other operation within the blockchain. So that means that the Suns are operating with the same consensus as the rest of the blockchain. So there's nothing. So essentially, so long as we have active participants voted in by Peerplays users, GPOS governance system will take care of the security. Just like any other chain, it's important to have engagement in the network and select Suns, and selecting the Suns, which you can do within the voting interface. Make sure that we have secure and independent operators. Each Sun cannot do anything to access counterparty blockchain assets any more than they are capable of accessing your PPY. So effectively, the way that this has been designed, it all depends on the way that users vote, and being able to make sure that there's separate node operators so that they won't be able to access counterpartying the underlying assets. So that is the main security measure, because otherwise there's no way to access the funds one way or another. It's the same consensus as the blockchain itself, essentially.
Thank you. Second question is, what is a POW and what is its purpose? How does it get funded?
Ooh, okay. That's a big question. So I'm going to give a little bit of a big answer. POW is spelled PAO, which stands for Peerplays Autonomous Organization. It's dedicated to specific service value offering it is associated with, based on current and new systems which originate out of Peerplays. So POWs also may be used to organize external entities, be they dApps, local communities, clubs, families, or even akin to a state or nation. There isn't just one POW, but multiple POWs, each of their own focus. Its established funding comes from 3 sources in its current iteration: donations, building community, and the associated use of the functions the POW is dedicated to, both by those who are a part of it or utilizing its capabilities, i.e. its smart contracts. In other words, basically how it's used is essentially where it would be able to generate funds. A POW is controlled by the rules set in its protocol, which will take input from people who have provided value to the network in one of the 3 ways that I mentioned previously. While Peerplays has no original investors, there is the community of interest which started the current blockchain and its distribution based on core assets of PPY. If the question is, how does a POW relate to PPY? The answer is there are 2 ways. Firstly, while each POW operates independently, the system requires an underlying asset which acts as a mediary of value transfer across multiple networks. This is based on PPY. This means that the TTV of the POW will have a value impact on PPY as part of the protocol to secure the whole network. Second, POWs always operate independently, and part of their design incorporates the use of PPY in carrying out its operations, and thus increasing the velocity and liquidity of PPY significantly based on use. So the DAM is a decentralized autonomous market maker, is largely involved in this to ensure the precision between networks where value transfer swap occur. Revenue to be paid to original investors won't be possible as there's no original investors. That was in relation to the question as a whole. So the rules of the POW are determined by its participants. If they decide the value flow should target PPY rather than representing tokens in the POW, then the logic can be created. Also, prior to these POWs being established, there needs to be community base around it of like-minded interest. If, for example, a person with PPY really only cares about sports betting exchange operations, they can exchange their PPY for the tokens in the POW that will represent, manage, and control the consensus surrounding that operation, so that they get greater participation in the POW's value benefits. That's essentially what a POW is all about.
Thank you. And a follow-up question to this. Total token value, aka total token lock in some DeFi circles. What does it actually mean? TTV locked in some DeFi circles, and how exactly should it create a profit to PPY holders? What are the mechanics?
So total token value is what TTV stands for, is the total value of tokens that are within the Peerplays network. The reasons we don't adopt the TTV acronym, common in DeFi, is because it is not accurate as to what is happening within Peerplays network when other cryptocurrencies come into it. When BTC, Hive, HBD, and soon ETH and others come into Peerplays, or tokens created within Peerplays create value, that is TTV. I understand it's difficult to understand in understanding this new term because it is a new dimension how Peerplays network maintains security in cross-chain world it has entered into. So Peerplays should always be looking for ways to improve security as technologies evolves, and I think this will bring even more security to the already secure network. That's my answer.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes today's weekly town hall meeting. Thank you everybody very much for joining us, and I hope you have a great week.